Shoes. Recorded live.
Welcome to the Thursday night's freedomfortargetedindividuals.org and targetedjustice.com podcast. And tonight we have yet another very distinctive guest as well as some community announcements. A couple of things. If you're new to the call, please stay on and we will get you some support, some helpful links and websites, and connect you with others. You can also visit our website, freedomfortargetedindividuals.org, and to learn information about the potential class action suit that's in process, you can go to targetedjustice.com. This is a solutions and educational and activism-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests and participants are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions for guests, questions, or in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail. Again, that's tiangel2016@gmail.com. So it's a pretty exciting night tonight. So the first thing I'd like to do is introduce you to Midge. She is one of the originators of targetedjustice.com, and she's here to give some updates and some information.
All right. Thank you, Ella. I just have, two things real quick. I just want to tell you all that the TI clinic that Dr. Rima LeBeau and Dr. Hildy are trying to pull together, which is a wonderful, wonderful idea. I talked to Dr. Rima today, and she has Dr. Rima Truth Reports, where she is a whistleblower herself. So she has asked me if I would tell the audience, because what she's trying to do is she's trying to she wants to hear from the TI community to what we need. What are our needs? That's what she would like to hear from you guys. Because, they have this great idea to go forward to help the TI community, but they don't know exactly what to do unless we tell them. So if you will do this, please, go to Dr. Rima Truth Reports and put in your email and then tell Dr. Rima what we need from the professionals as a community, whether it be, lower prices for their services or, whatever the case may be. I mean, there's so many different things that the community needs. So please do that. And I'll tell you what, I think so highly of Dr. Rima, and I think so highly of Hildy. They're just both wonderful, and we're trying to move everything in the right direction. So also, I just want to say, if you all heard about the diplomats in China, that they discovered that some of the diplomats were hit with dues, and they have brain damage. So if you guys haven't heard of that, look into it, okay? So that's all I have for tonight, Ella. I appreciate you letting me come on.
Well, I appreciate having you here. And, I have a nice article that I can read at some point. I might do it on another day. It's a very interesting article. And if I don't get the opportunity tonight, if you go online, you look at the independent paper, there is an article about what has occurred in China. And basically, they're reporting abnormal sounds like the diplomats heard in Cuba. So this is a really, really important thing to just give more validation and credibility to these type of microwave weapons that are in use. And it's just another good thing that's happening in the world. And it's horrible, of course. I don't want to say it's good, but it's good in the way that it supports us and validates our claims. So that's definitely something everyone should look into. And if I'm able to get out a newsletter this month, in the upcoming month, I will definitely include the links to that as well. And Midge, I want to say thank you for your involvement in putting together this health team for everybody, because I know you're the person that knows everybody and brought everybody together, and you were responsible for doing so much for the community and putting together so many groups of people together to try to move our movement forward. So thank you, Midge.
Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that.
I mean it. And then, Matthew, I'm going to turn it over to you. We have a wonderful person in the community. She's come up with a bill proposal. You've heard us talk about her. I've interviewed her as well, if you ever want to listen to her. Her name is Tomo Shibata, Dr. Tomo Shibata. She's also on, I interviewed her. You can look on the YouTube under Ella Free if you want to familiarize yourself with her. So Matthew has a little update on her as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ella. This is Matthew Aaron, and I just want to say I'm a coordinator of FFTI along with Ella Free, and one of our board members is Dr. Tomo Shibata, and we would like to promote her GoFundMe campaign, and that is to help offset her costs of lobbying this bill proposal effort. If you go to the FFTI webpage, which is www.freedomfortargetedindividuals.org, and then you select or click Current Action and Events, a link to her GoFundMe page is there. You can also click on a PDF icon, and you can actually download the bill proposal, which has been converted to bill text language by the California Office of Legislative Counsel. And at this point, the bill proposal has no backing by a state senator or an assembly person, though it has been assigned a reference number for consideration this year. So the current effort is to lobby different representatives in California to support it, and also to contact nonprofit organizations that might also put their weight behind it. And this effort has been somewhat expensive. Tomo has done this completely, using her own money up until now. So she raised the idea of trying to raise some small funds to offset the cost, and we support that. She is one of the board members, as I said, of FFTI. And in this case, there is a donor who will match the first $1,000 of donations. I think the goal is set at $2,000. So basically, there is a donor who is already matching donations until that goal is reached of $2,000. And otherwise, I would also like to say that the whole mission of FFTI is to support activists, to facilitate activism and people who want to become their own leaders in a sense in the TI community, activism leaders. So if you have an initiative of your own and you'd like us to promote it, get in touch with us. And on the Current Action and Events tab, you'll see that we've promoted other initiatives. That's kind of the mission of our organization. We like to facilitate initiatives. We also engage in initiatives of our own. We're undertaking a communications initiative, which we hope to roll out before TI Day happens. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate it. Sorry, I didn't know my phone was unmuted. And the other thing I just found out, I just remembered, today, exactly 2 years ago, was the first Triumph Over Targeting podcast. So happy birthday to everybody that's here for 2 years. And I'm really proud and surprised I'm still here after 2 years doing this. So it was exactly 2 year ago. It was May 24, 2016. So here we are, 2 years later. Yeah, we're doing all right.
That's
Thank
amazing. Ella, can I just say one more thing just real quick? I just want to really thank the volunteers who are helping. We have this big project that we're doing, and I have had so many wonderful people stepping up saying they'll help because we can't do it without you. So I just really, really appreciate you all. Seriously, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, again, Kieron is here. So he is the resident in the UK, and many of you might be aware of him from the Vice video, and it has had many, many views. It's considered one of the top documentaries. It was on Vice, and it was specifically for target individuals. He himself was on there, and it brought the subject matter to light, and maybe not necessarily in the most positive way, but I believe Kieron and everyone else did the best they could on a topic that hadn't reached the masses yet. So, but anyways, regardless, he's here. He's done a lot of work. He has great ideas. He's a very strong leader in this community, and I'm very happy to be speaking with him tonight. So thank you, Kieron. And I know it's like 2 in the morning there. What time do you have there?
Hang on, I need to put my glasses on. Hang on. It is 2:17, yeah.
2:17. Okay, so he's up late for us to join us today. So I appreciate your time and your efforts and you agreeing to come on and do this interview. So to kind of introduce you to everybody here so everyone can hear you and ask questions. So I guess maybe, since I didn't get a bio, maybe if you'd like to share everybody a little bit about your background. I really like to kind of give people an understanding of who you are, where you were raised, and what you were like before all this happened.
Well, I suppose the most apt way to describe myself would be as a mind control target, yeah. I'm from the north of England. I grew up predominantly in the middle of England and now live in the south of England. But also spent some time in Africa as a child, which is where I was implanted with brain implants, yeah. ICT brain implants. Ella, could I just say something with regards to your introduction there?
Sure.
Concerning the Vice documentary. Because the Vice documentary was not the program the company made. They practically camped in my flat for 8 months. Were totally convinced of not only what I told them, what my friends told them as well, my counterparts told them. 24 hours before the documentary was due to be released, I received a call explaining to me that the documentary was going to be in our favor. They believed us. They wanted to help, not just us, but everybody concerned in this. The documentary was due to be released at 1 o'clock the following day, and it just didn't happen. My life is like this, you know. I've been on the precipice so many times. I just thought, well, here we go again, and left it. 3 days later, I was contacted, and they explained to me that, well, in their own words, nobody's ever stopped us putting out a documentary before, Kieron, but they have now. All I can tell you is we've got teams of solicitors on this, and we don't know what's going on. And this went on for 7 weeks until finally the documentary went out and it was chopped up, literally chopped up, completely censored they were. So the documentary you're referring to was not the documentary that company made. And, you know, as a consequence, we all paid a price. However, I will add that I said to them that, whatever, run it. I'll take the flak, so will Shane, the other guy that appeared in it, because we need to broaden the debate. People need to know this. People need to, people need to be informed, and we need to fuel the debate. Ultimately, we're telling the truth, and we will win that debate. And the documentary went out. But it was heavily, heavily censored. And that is something that most people, I mean, I looked today, actually, for the first time in a while. It's approaching 1 million hits on YouTube alone. But most people that have seen it aren't aware that it's a censored piece. And it is, Ella. It was, or it is, yeah.
I believe that. Yeah, we do know how they can change a spin. And I've seen it with articles. I've seen it in other situations. I've seen something go very in our favor to completely being shelved. So it's unfortunate. It's just, I'm not sure why. There's so many other forces that get involved in these types of productions. So it's disappointing. But, you know, you gave your best, and you did the best. You were honest, and you gave all the information you had. And it's just, they have that power over of how to spin it. So.
Yeah, but it's important that people realise that, I mean, I worked in the mainstream media here in Britain for 15 years, you know, predominantly independently. I owned my own company. I was a recruiter for television stations, magazines, radio stations, newspapers, blah-de-blah, so on, so on. And so I'm quite media savvy. I've got an understanding of things. I've also been interviewed by the national press here, back in 2011, a newspaper I'm sure most of you over there will have heard of as well, The Independent, which is now not a newspaper, it's purely a website. But they too were censored after weeks of investigating my case, called me up and said, look, you know, a doctor has confirmed all the medical evidence you provided. We've concluded our investigation, and you're telling the truth, and the state is covering this up, but we've been censored. But the key point is here that they said to me, look, this is unprecedented as well. Whenever we're censored, we always get the name of the authority which is censoring us. We cannot get that information. This is unprecedented for us. We do not know who is censoring us. And for the record as well, Ella, that journalist I'm referring to now has disappeared.
Wow.
He hasn't been seen. Well, he's not been present on the internet since January 2016. I've made inquiries. Nobody at the newspaper he worked at knows where he is. I've contacted people in the media industry here that knew him and had no response either. So I don't know where he is. He told me when I met him that he'd been involved in investigating things historically and he'd had death threats and the like. But he knew on meeting me, he said to me, look, I know I'm in the zone now. I know my life is in danger. The police also attended that meeting, uninvited, I will add, which was at an isolated location, early hours of the morning, and he informed me as to the fact that the police had turned up because he knew who they were. They were plainclothes. And things ran on from there. So it's not really accurate to say that we did our best or that Vice did their best. It was literally, it was jumped on, and they were prevented from putting out the program that they wanted to put out. And this is very, very important that people understand this.
Thanks for the clarification. That's important.
Sorry,
it's good. No, thanks for clarifying that for me, and thanks for adding that missing piece of information, because so many people didn't realize that, and you're giving some inside information as to how that happened. So I appreciate that.
Great. You'll have to excuse me as well. I'm still coming around. I woke up on my couch about 2 minutes to 2. I fell asleep listening to Ramon Ledee, but thankfully for some reason I did come around. So likewise, I'm grateful to you guys for having me on.
Okay. So I don't know, since the timelines, it seems like this goes way back for you. Did you want to go into a little bit about like your when you first realized that you were targeted, when you found this community, and this is going back a little bit, just to kind of give people a sense of what you were experiencing prior to you entering a community of people that were apparently going through similar symptoms and experiencing similar situations.
Sure, yeah, I understand that. Well, like many TIs, I suppose, I was dealing with it for quite some time before I realized that a lot of other people would. But I think it's important to put things in perspective. I'm now 52 years old, and I had brain implants surgically inserted, when I was 9 years old. Now, after it had happened, I had, some very obvious physical effects. It was a problem, but I was a child, and I healed, I moved on, I put it behind me. But I can, state that I've been being microwaved since I was a teenager. I now know what it is, and I suffer from it, all the time. All the time. To be frank with you, the last 2 weeks has been horrific. It's been horrendous, like almost constant, like microwaving. My home is like one big microwave oven. But I experienced these things as a teenager. I didn't really understand what was happening. I just become very overtly fatigued, very tired, and with, well, we all know the effects, that once we've dealt with them. And but back then, of course, not only did I have no comprehension of what I was dealing with, there was absolutely no information available either. And that was very much the case, let me put this in perspective. When I was in my early 30s, when things really, really kicked off, even though I'd been feeling the effects of what I'm dealing with prior to that time, I was just left aghast, really. What on earth is going on? Not just with regards to the directed energy weapons, the manipulation of my life and my business at the time as well. It was so obvious to me, but yet, in trying to explain it to other people, all TIs will understand this. I was, people didn't receive the information, shall we say, very readily, you know. And I was isolated, yeah. I was completely, totally isolated, in the dark with regards to what I was dealing with, but I knew everything was real. As a consequence of this, when I started kicking back and trying to expose what was happening, I was apprehended, shall we say? Is probably, I'm looking for a better word, but I was apprehended by the authorities and accused of doing something I hadn't done, which was trying to commit suicide in a public place by dousing myself in petrol and trying to set myself on fire. And I'm sat there and I'm saying, well, this is nonsense. You know, nothing even resembling that ever happened. And I was then told, well, this is the information we have. It's here in a document. You've got to come with us. So, you know, I thought, well, I don't really have a lot of choice, so I went along with it. And I was incarcerated in a private mental institution in a place called Chelsea in London, if anyone's aware of that. The real estate in Chelsea is renowned for being very, very expensive. So was the hospital they put me in. This was, 17 years ago now? And it was £1,000 a night almost. So I'm sat here in something in a place which resembled, you know, a 5-star hotel, but I've got doctors in my face accusing me of all sorts that I hadn't done. And I'm sat here thinking, what is going on? And months later, and it was months, I was to win a tribunal in which they declared that we accept all the evidence was fabricated to put you in here. We don't know how this could happen, why this has happened, but you're free to go, but we cannot help you beyond this point. Now, beyond this point, I stepped out thinking, right, they have absolutely crucified my life. They have wrecked my business. If this is going to be straightforward, I'm just going to have to sue them. But that's when things really kicked off, fella. That's when I was in the dark. That's when I suppose to sum it up, the staff in the hospital said to me prior to leaving, they said, look, you know, because they actually all really were on my side ultimately. They said, look, you know, we accept this now, that the evidence was fabricated and that you were stitched up, essentially, to be put in here. But we've got one question for you. I said, fire away. They said, why would all these people do all these awful, horrible things to you? And at the time I said to them, I've got no idea. I'm just telling you what's been happening. And I am oblivious, really, as to the reasonings behind it, apart from, you know, what I've alluded to in the conversations we've had. And that was 2001. Now, if I could bring you forward to, it would be roughly, probably about 2013, 2014. Again, I'd been surrounded and circled by a load of perpetrators, and my doctor, who I'd developed quite a good relationship with, was obviously being pressured. So he called me up one afternoon, and he said, look, Kieron, if I arrange an appointment, would you go voluntarily to speak to a psychiatrist? And I said, yeah, doc, why not? And he was like, oh, fine then. But I knew what I was doing. And I went back to speak to these doctors, actually, and I ended up meeting with about 8 of them. But when I met with them, I ran the scenario past them that I just ran past you guys that happened in 2001 when they asked me that question, why would all this be happening? And I said to them, look, I can answer that question now. I am a targeted individual. And I didn't know what one was then. And this has been done deliberately, and this is corruption. This is corrupt. And fire away. Ask any questions you like. I can answer them, and I did. And I ended up having numerous meetings with several doctors down there, and ultimately they all accepted my case as legitimate. And their final words to me were, and this was screaming down the phone, this is a psychologist, everybody that works here, Kieron, is talking about this. every single person that works here. And I turned around and said, well, that's okay, that's good. But what about all the other TIs that are in your hospitals that have got no evidence, that cannot prove their cases? What about those people? The conversation ended there, and the entire hospital was shut down, Ella, as have solicitors' offices and other establishments that I've encountered. That's what we're dealing with. We can prove it. We have absolute proof of what's going on. I've now got official acknowledgement of the ICT brain implants in my head. And not only that, my paper trails with the authorities here prove everything, including, as I've stated already, the national press having accepted things in 2011. So why, currently, are they still debating the issue? They're wasting our time, they're wasting our money, and they're lying to us because we can prove everything.
Yeah. What about your family or the people around you? Were they supportive, and how much did they know?
My family are in on this. Okay. They were paid to have me implanted. It's a very, very mysterious situation. It's almost as though my past has been erased. But when I went to Africa at 9 years old, it was supposedly for my father's job, but that was a complete washout ultimately, and we ended up fleeing the country. I remember it vividly. I was 10 at the time when we were apparently 10. That's something else I can go into. We ended up fleeing the country in the middle of the night because there was trouble. I mean, it was a very turbulent time in West Africa at that time, particularly in Nigeria where we were. And there were problems, difficulties. But we got home, and apparently, my family had lost everything, but yet, very shortly after that, we moved to a new house, a bigger house. And from a financial perspective, everything seemed fine. And I was oblivious to what had been done to me, but it was to become apparent in latter years, as was the fact that my family were involved. I do come from a Perp family, and the really, really sort of like, I suppose, frightening aspect of this is that my family are a military family. And what I'm wearing, I know, is military technology. I've had that confirmed by military people too. So yeah, essentially this was done to me. Well, not by my family, but my family facilitated it, and thereafter behaved like a bunch of perps to me as well. So it's pretty shocking. If I was to detail it, it would shock anybody, to be frank with you.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear similar, maybe not exactly the same, but I've heard people convey similar information. It's really hard to swallow, that families can be enlisted to do these type of things.
Excuse me. Well, I try to take a rather scientific approach to things now, whereas, I've been dealing with trauma, as a lot of your audience will be able to understand, since I was a child. And I've become very conditioned to it and very proficient at dealing with it. But in order to do so, I've had to detach myself emotionally from a great deal and just focus on facts, just focus on pragmatism, just focus on, well, truth, really, and justice too, because I intend to exact my revenge on these people as well, and they're aware of that. I've got the evidence, and I intend to have them locked up.
Mhm. Well, justifiably so. So, there's a couple of questions. What do you do? I mean, I feel like there's more questions I need to be asking, but just maybe to jump forward just a little bit, or to maybe give some advice to people who are listening. What do you do? What kind of shielding do you do? What do you do emotionally to support yourself or to get through the day? Are you involved in other groups? Do you have a community? What is it that you do that helps you get through this?
Firstly, and this is very important as well for people to take on board too, the government have supported me here since 2009. because I proved to doctors that my circumstances were legitimate, and they awarded me benefits. So I live, financially, I'm provided for. I've got a flat, so it's rent-free, and I get an amount of money from the state. But I have to add here as well that they won't talk to me at all. They won't respond to phone calls. They won't respond to letters. And I am treated essentially as though I don't exist by the state here. However, I get a check goes into my bank every 2 weeks, and I'm able to exist. I'm able to live, but I cannot get any help, any effective help via the state here at all. But things are starting to change, I hope. So, that's down to me being able to, down to me having, pressured different departments, shall we say, over a number of years now. So I don't have to work. It's not as though I can, I live an extremely comfortable lifestyle. I don't. Things are still difficult from that perspective. But I utilise my time, and I've applied myself to activism, really, to trying to expose this, to try to do something about this. And that's evident online, essentially, Ella, really. Are you there?
Are you? Yes, I'm here. Sorry. Are you working currently on any projects? Is there anything you have your hands in? It sounds like you definitely are involved with the community. You always seem to have, from speaking with you privately, that you have the community on your mind quite often. So I'm just curious what you're working on currently.
Well, yes. If you want to check us out on YouTube, TI Television. We started a YouTube channel. I think it was about last September, roughly. I'm thinking now. Well, we've got something like 15 videos we've produced now, and our numbers are increasing. And what we're actually doing is we're very much along the lines that you're doing here. We're documenting TI testimonies. We're presenting evidence, and we're pressuring the authorities via this.
Yeah, that's what needs to be done. We do need to put pressure on the authorities, and we also need to enlist the support of the non-TIs and the rest of the communities at large. I think it's really important.
This is essentially our mission: is to communicate with non-TIs. TIs are aware of what's happening to them. They don't need persuading. It's the people that don't believe this, that can't accept this, that we're trying to reach, that we're trying to communicate with. And, you can imagine, not imagine, that it's no small task. Because people have been conditioned, for a couple of generations now, really to accept the status quo as they've been educated to believe it is, that our governments could and would not be responsible for this sort of thing. But we know that, the reality is very, very different. Very, very different. Our governments are very, very aware of this. Not only that, the fact is, the truth is, they're perpetrating this against us. This is a depopulation program. And it's not decreasing, it's increasing. And things are coming to a head on many fronts. The reason I agreed to speak to you today, Ella, is because you've got a very, very good reputation this side of the pond. I've refused to do interviews for well over a year now. And the TI community itself it's very, to put it mildly, disjointed. But really, to describe it, in my own words, given how I've experienced it, is, personally to me, it's been almost as bad as dealing with perpetrators, to be frank with you. It's been atrocious. So has the reaction do people generally read the Vice documentary? You know, it's like nobody's asking any questions. They're all just making assumptions, you know, conveying opinions. You know, looking at it as from a negative perspective instead of taking the positives. I mean, how long ago did it go out? I think it's about a year now. And there must be reams and reams and reams of information that's been created. Read it. Other people making videos, you know, writing articles. Yet very few questions have been asked. Everybody's just chucking their opinions at things, and we're going round in a negative spiral. We're all like hamsters on a wheel, and we're not really getting anywhere at the moment because there's no cohesion. You know, a big reason for that is because of what's going on within the TI community. There are organizations and there are individuals that people need to be aware of, who they are, what they're about, and why we're not getting anywhere, essentially. Because the reason is those people. Ella, could I just take a break and go to the loo? Is that okay?
Well, absolutely, no problem.
I had just woken up. You'll have to bear with me. I won't be much.
No problem at all. Okay. We'll have Kieron back with us soon. If he was taking a while, I would love to read this article to you, but like I said, maybe we'll get a chance by the end of the interview. Maybe I'll unmute somebody and say hello. Matthew, you still there? Let's see who I can pick on. Northwest California. Hi, California.
Yeah, I'm still here, Ella.
Okay, great. Oh.
I'm just listening. I totally agree with Kieron's assessment of...
Hello.
There he is.
Back to him.
Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry, I'm not in the best of ways at the moment at all. I've been microwaved, intensely for about 3 weeks.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And I'm a mess.
Matthew is my fellow coordinator for freedomfortargetindividuals.org, and he's on the line, and I just unmuted him for a second. He was going to say that he agrees with your assessment on, on which point, Matthew?
Oh, that the community is disjointed and that's holding us back. I agree 100% with that.
Very, very much so. Very much so. I mean, I used to run a business in the corporate sector, you know, and it was in the media as well. And you know, I'm shocked by very little. You know, these days, given what I've experienced, you know, as a TI, as most of us are. But I have been dumbfounded with the behavior of certain people in the so-called TI community since I actually made the decision to get involved. Because to be frank with you, I dealt with things on my own for many years. Even though I became aware that there was, you know, things were happening online, I focused myself. I focused personally on dealing with institutions because that was my job, you know, as a salesman, you know, as a corporate salesman. But as a targeted individual with the evidence, I thought, well, no, it's exfoliation as far as I'm concerned. It's layer cake. I'll just take off layer by layer until I get to the decision makers. And I did very, very well, you know, to blow my own trumpet to a degree. But it's when I opened up and I decided to get involved with other people in the as I said, I will say this, I mean, it's so-called TR community that I was left aghast. I could not believe what I experienced. Because what happened is that I raised money for certain people within the TI community to help them. I introduced them to other people, and these people turned around and they were like perpetrators on steroids. their behavior towards me and other people I know was absolutely disgusting. And it just increased once the Vice documentary, prior to it going out, but after it went out as well. And I was just I was just knocked back. I just thought, what on earth is going on here? So for the last 4 years, essentially, I've been going out of my way. I mean, traveling to other countries as well to meet people, to speak publicly, to try and establish, what's going on. And I've been shocked and horrified, I will add, at the behavior of some people that are prominent figures within the TI community. It's been, and I will use the word, disgusting. Their behavior has been disgusting. For people that are openly campaigning about gang stalking and the like, to behave the way they have, just shocked me to my core. Absolutely shocked me to my core. And it seems to me that the reasoning behind, these people, I don't believe, the ones I'm referring to now, are actually on the dark side. I don't believe they're government agents. I don't believe they're perps. I just believe they're narcissistic and greedy. And so they've taken to not just attacking, not just myself, other people, undermining us, undermining what we're doing, because basically they want to do it themselves, and they're not capable. And that's what's knocked me back. And I've refused to do interviews for quite some time now, and refused to get involved with other people apart from what we're doing at TI Television because of this. And this, as I see it, is the problem we've got, guys. Everything is happening online. I'm talking to you now because I have every respect for you, Ella, and what you're doing, and other people that listen to this show that are looking for help. But what's going on online is a farce. It's a joke. And it's detrimental to all of us because we've got individuals who are collectives as well in some instances that are attacking and undermining anybody and everybody that might threaten what they're attempting to do, which is really monopolize things and make money. So I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing the phrase, we need to come together, we need to work together, because that's what we've been trying to achieve, and all that's happened to us is that we've been, as I said, I'll repeat it, attacked and undermined. Mm-hmm. And this is quite shocking, and some of them are genuine TIs, I can vouch for that as well. But yet they seem to think that it's some sort of meal ticket for them, and that they've got some sort of right to try and monopolize things. And it's taken me back more than anything really over the last few years. To be honest, it really has, because I viewed things objectively on the internet prior to getting involved, and once I stepped forward and got involved, it was just, devastating is the word I will use. Devastating. We all know things are infiltrated, and there are some people that are agitators purposely in place to mess things up. But the lack of cohesion is hideous. There's some shining lights, of course there are. But currently, as things stand, with the evidence we've got and the information we've got, we're holding each other back. We're holding each other back, and we're bringing each other down. And I'm pretty well educated with regards to human nature, given my life experiences and my professional background. And I expect the negative aspects, but what I've experienced has just been I'll use the word again, hideous.
I'm sorry to hear that. I know this is terrible to go through within itself, and then to have that type of behavior from your own communities, it's heartbreaking. And I'm just sorry you've had to endure this.
Well, not really. It's not the heartbreaking thing. It's shocking. As I said, I can emotionally detach myself and deal with most things.
Heartbreaking to me, though, it really is. It saddens me. But I'm glad you come to a point where you can be objective, and that's probably where I need to get to.
What do you mean by that, Ella?
Well, like you can take you said that you have become more what's the word? Not colder, but you just become more not what was the word you used? That you pulled yourself out of the emotion and you can just be, I guess, observant. I don't know the word you used, but I understand sometimes we have to move out of the emotional aspects and maybe being heartbroken to be more productive and to not get caught up in it. Is what I understand. So.
Yeah. I think it's more frustrating than anything.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating.
Yeah.
But you would hope. You would hope that these thousands of people. I've spoken to maybe 1,000 or so people, and with all these people and all the suffering and the torture and the lack of support, anyone going through this and to not get support and to be told that they have mental issues and locked up on so many occasions when they need support, I mean, that's horrifying. And then for that person to have all this trauma and PTSD and worry over everything, it's so difficult for anybody to function properly. Just everyone's so traumatized and so broken. And we would hope that everyone can come together and function properly. But it's how can we after everyone's been through so much independently and individually? So I can see that it's a challenge. And as you said, there's people who come in here and they're opportunistic. That's what I have a problem with. They do come in and they're siphoning off the community or whatever the case may be. And so, you mentioned that briefly earlier, and I understand that sentiment.
You've put that far better than I did, Ella. Yes, I agree with you 100%. That is what I was trying to say. Excuse me, I am still waking up.
You're fine. You're great. I'm sure people are just happy to hear you.
Yeah, that is, that is a major issue. I empathise and I sympathise with anybody that's a TI. It is a hell on earth, and it's being done on purpose, to people. Their lives are being flooded with negativity, flooded with pain, flooded with trauma, and it really is as bad as things get. But it is a matter of fact. Now, there are some amongst us that are in a position and capable of doing something about it. But the point I'm trying to make is the biggest problem we've had, and I say we because I'm involved with other people, is TIs per se. Is TIs trying to undermine what we're doing. We're not talking about perps here, infiltrators. We're talking about genuine TIs that seem to believe that they've got... I've got no problem with people trying to raise money. I've got no problem with people campaigning, trying to forward themselves. But I have a major issue with them attacking and undermining other people. Simply because we might be a threat to what they're doing. And that's what I've experienced. And it really was born out of the fact that initially when I got involved with the TI community, I assessed certain people, and which used to be my job, by the way, I will add, assessing people and their abilities. That's what I got paid for, and I got paid a lot of money for it. And I only got paid if I delivered, generally speaking. So I did become honed over the years. But I assessed these people, and I declined to get involved with them. Now, I've had to endure, such vicious campaigns that have been executed against me. This is from TIs. They've circulated information online that I'm a drug dealer. I'm this, I'm that, I'm other things. Not only that, other people I know. And these are people that are campaigning about gang stalking. Yet this is how they're operating online. And this is why I've not really gotten involved online for quite some time now. Because the experiences I've had have just been, well, how many words do I need to conjure, Ella, to explain it? It's just been, well, to be honest, pathetic.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Ridiculous people, attacking people that are trying to do something about what is, mass murder. We know that. This is happening. It is very real. And some of the people making it, as difficult as it is, making it nigh on impossible to do anything about this, are other TIs. We all know we're programmed this way. It's very difficult for TIs to get together, to group together, to organise. But, these people are organised. They are together. But yet they're attacking us in such, in such a ridiculous manner, because it's just like, the information is totally unfounded. And this is what's going on online. So, by and large, me and other people I know, we've stepped back and thought, forget it. We'll do our thing. And what's happened there? That's being attacked. That's being undermined. And even the TIs we're meeting and interviewing are telling us, we can't understand why you guys are being attacked to the degree that you are, why everybody's so against you. And we say, well, we're just doing our thing, essentially. But we've got potential. We know that. And these people want to be who and where we are. But they're not capable. Most of the people I encounter that I'm referring to now have never had a proper job in their lives. They've just become privy to some, secret information that they know is important, and they think it's a meal ticket for them. So they're trying to forward themselves at the expense of anybody and everybody, which is what happens to TIs via perps, and that's what's going on. Insofar as we're concerned, our side of the fence, in the UK, that is. But, we're one and the same. I mean, come on. With modern communications, Americans are very much our cousins, shall we say. We're all in this together. Our government is in bed with your government. We are the Western Hemisphere, us and the other European nations, and several others. But yet, there's no cohesion. We're not pulling together, and we're not going to get anywhere until we do. And I am absolutely sick and tired of listening to people talking about unity, talking about coming together, and none of it happening because they're doing the exact opposite once they're not talking openly and publicly. It's almost like it's like the dog-eat-dog world of the corporate sector I used to work in. Oh, if there's some kind of threat to us, then we need to attack them. We need to undermine them. And so currently, I am on the offensive as well, but justifiably, totally justifiably. And yeah, I've had a bit of a whinge and a bit of a moan here, but I mean what I've just said, and I can explain it and explain it in some detail. I can name names, who's who and what's what. But I think really, ideally, we should move on and try and be a little bit more positive at this juncture if we can.
I think so too. We just have to, we have our interactions with certain people and we know what they're about, and who knows, maybe things will be, you just never know. People do change their mind, people do come around once in a while, but when you have you were in something that 1 million people saw, there's a good percentage of people that are going to attack, and unfortunately sometimes it's the ones attacking that leave the most of the impression. So it's difficult to bounce back from that.
Again, I think we should point out that anything online that's going to get that amount of attention is going to have a lot of paid shills. Pay it a lot of attention. A lot of the people commenting on that documentary. I know for a fact that governments employ warehouses full of people to as sort of like, what do we call them? To attack, basically, shills, basically paid shills, to attack things online, to create subterfuge, to have, to stop the truth getting out. They'll create subterfuge. They'll create fog. They'll create questions. But yeah, to reiterate on what you just said, yeah. Me and my friends, we've had to put up with 9 and 1 million people screaming nutter at you. You're insane, you're mad. And we're thinking, well, hang on a minute, if that's the case, why are we able to live, regular lives? And also, it's important, Ella, to point out that as I mentioned earlier, I've met with lots of psychiatrists and psychologists over here. They've all accepted there's nothing wrong with me. Absolutely nothing, and this is official. And I've also proven, I've won 2 tribunals, proven that they locked me up twice on fabricated evidence. And in one of those tribunals, I entitled my evidence as State-Sponsored Rape, Torture and Murder in the United Kingdom, Kieron Perrin against the British establishment, and I won that tribunal. Now, when you're somebody like me who's experienced this and who's done this and has had these triumphs in his life, to have to endure, people en masse on a daily basis still calling me insane, calling me mad, I'll use that word again, it's pathetic, Ella. TI movement is going to get nowhere until we move on from that factor. Regular people in life, they're not even trained to diagnose, somebody who's mentally ill and somebody who's not. Yet, we're still putting up with it. Thousands upon thousands of people online just throwing that one thing at us. And I tell you what, we're bored. We are tired and we are bored of the TI community and where it's at and where it's not going, to be frank with you, because of the negativity. We know, that things are organised along such lines, but come on, we're all experienced now. We know this, and everybody just seems to jump on the bandwagon and wants to diss anything positive, anything that's coming through, and we're going to get nowhere. We're going to get nowhere until we adopt, and I will say this, I'll say historically, a more American positive approach. Because at the moment, we're just tearing each other to pieces, which is why we step back. We just stepped back and we thought, look, it's not that we don't want to fight the fight. It's just that, I'll use the word again, we're bored. It's just so repetitive. We're like hamsters on wheels, going round and round and round, answering the same questions over and over and over, and we're getting nowhere. And I need to state this now. We can not only prove my case categorically, we can prove the case of others categorically. And the only thing preventing us from doing so officially is the state engaging with us, because they're doing everything they can to avoid engaging with us. The state of play with me at the moment, and a handful of other people I know, is I seem to have absolute impunity with regards to what I say and do, because the last thing the state wants to do is deal with me. Yet when it comes down to the TI community, I'm just pilloried. Constantly pilloried. Largely because now of the Vice documentary, but if people sit and listen, they'll understand that the Vice documentary they watched was not the documentary that company made. It's important. This is very important, Ella. They've got an audience of millions, and that company was totally on side with us. They believed us, and they wanted to help us, and they got jumped on by outside forces. And the sooner people wake up to that, the better. And I'm somebody, and my friend Shane got pilloried in that documentary, and he wasn't that media savvy. They talked about his mother, they talked about him, and he had. He said, Kieron, I shouldn't have read it, but I couldn't help it. Have you seen what they're saying about me? I said, look, Shane, this was going to happen. We had to face this out. And that is a very, very strong and a very, very good man who wants to do something about this. But he's had thousands and thousands of people just throwing insults at him for a television program that wasn't even the program the company made. It was a stitch-up. That's where we're at. And we can turn this situation around. I won't say easily, but we can turn this situation around if people stop attacking us and stop being negative. We are being tortured, yes. It is horrific, yes. Some of us are even having our minds invaded as well as our bodies, yes. But this is a matter of fact. And a very, very, very amazing American has saved so many of us from going insane by educating us, a Dr. Robert Duncan. However, what's coming from the vast majority of people who are suffering from this is just masses and masses of negativity. And until we stop that, we're going to get nowhere. Until we stop attacking each other and undermining each other, we're just going to continue dying, essentially. And the media is going to continue burying it. And they're going to continue using the science of gradualism to write us all off to, as a historical fact. Just like the MK Ultra victims of the 1960s and the 1970s and the 1980s that are now dead. They're consigned to the realms of history, forgotten. Because, that happened then, it's not happening now. It's like your President Clinton stood up. I mean, when was it? 1999 or whatever, and apologized to everybody. I mean, come on, bullshit. He just covered it up. It's never stopped. It's on steroids now. It's an agenda. We have to confront these people, and we have to confront them as a unified force. And unless we stop infighting and undermining each other, we're going to get nowhere. And I could name names. I could say an awful lot now. But I don't think this is, the most appropriate time, Ella, because, you're not really aware of who I am. You don't know my background. You don't know what I'm about. You don't know whether to trust me or not. That's a fact. That's life. But we need to sort of communicate, more regularly, and we need to ascertain and establish who are the people that we can trust. Who are the people we can put our faith in?
Mm-hmm. I hope everybody heard what you say about all the infighting, because that's a message that resonates so deeply with me and so many people listening. Matthew himself speaks this way constantly, and you just kind of validate what so many of us instinctively know. And I hope everyone's listening to what you're saying about that. That is what's going to have to happen if we're going to move forward even more. So I hope everyone's listening to Kieron carefully.
Yeah, well, it's easier said than done as well. That's true. People are people.
We all know that.
Yeah, and things are going to be infiltrated.
Yeah.
And people are going to be messed with, and anybody that steps to the fore is going to have to take flak. But what we need is people not jump into conclusions, to be more discerning about matters. It's topical at the moment, so I'll bring it up, because this is essentially what I've been doing for the last 4 years, which is, infiltrating, meeting people, trying to ascertain as to who's who and what's what. And as I said, I've been really shocked with regards to what I've experienced. But it's far, far more serious than that, because we are getting somewhere now, and we can bust the bucket on things, because I'm talking to you now, Ella, and essentially because of your reputation, and the people you're involved with. I know it's not always down to an individual, because the major problem we've got is the media, and I don't mean the mainstream media necessarily, I mean the alternative media as well. And over here, after I'd been censored in the mainstream media, I have what's called a D notice on my head, which means the media aren't allowed to talk to me, essentially, for reasons of national security. So I then I went to the alternative media and experienced not exactly the same thing, but it wasn't right. It certainly was not right. And I thought, hang on, what on earth is going on here? These people, to my mind, are not interested in putting the truth out. They're interested in hiding the truth, in covering it up. And not only that, targeting the people that are trying to get the word out. And things are coming to light currently because, as I said, I've spent 4 years trying to establish who's who and what's what. And during this time, I'll tell you, I've been, at so many times, I thought, no, I'm a goner. The targeting I deal with is intense. I am microwaved for weeks, months sometimes, and the mind control I deal with is just intense at times as well. But I've come to terms with most of it. But this is true, guys. Honestly, with regards to my circumstances in this country now, the police don't bother me. The medical establishment doesn't bother me. The media doesn't bother me. The local authorities don't bother me. Everybody leaves me completely alone, and I'm given money to live on. I get free rent, and that's how they deal with me, by completely ignoring me, because they know I can prove this. I've proved it in formal situations. I've got the medical evidence. Even my doctor now, I've negotiated this, has had to accept I've got brain implants. Yet, whenever I try and do anything about it currently, the problems I'm getting are via the TI community, trying to undermine what we're doing and trying to discredit who I am, what I am, the evidence I've got, and it's just a joke. It is pathetic. I believe we're going to have some sort of major breakthrough soon, and I want to help people, I really do. But I've been wavering for 2-3 weeks now, and I do know quite a lot of people who are TIs, and I've had meetings and discussions with them, and I've said, look, currently at the moment, I really am considering just taking a big step back and taking with me 4 to 6 people who've got strong cases, and just concentrating on us as a small group, because I've got so sick and tired of everybody trying to sort of like elevate themselves, forward themselves. Even people who aren't even TIs pretending to be TIs, Ella, to try and make a name for themselves, and it's just a bit ridiculous. It's just so childish and so farcical when people's lives are on the line. I've been interviewing people for months now, and I'm having more difficulty with that than I am with anything else, because a lot of these people are being drugged and systematically raped and have been throughout their lives. And I've been to the police about this, and they're expecting to hear from me again. And when you're sat taking testimonies along such lines over and over again, it's not easy for an individual to take. And the last guy I interviewed, he was looking at my expression, and he said to me, look, you are aware, Kieron, that a psychologist gets an hour's counselling for every 4 hours of work they do. I said, no, I'm not aware of that. And he said, well, I'm very aware of the fact that you don't get any of that, and you're dealing with this, and I thank you for it, but I also appreciate how difficult it is for somebody like you to have to absorb all this information. And I do, Ella, and I have for years. And my circumstances, I won't say more than, are at least as horrific as any TI out there. And I managed to keep going, likewise with other people I know, and I managed to keep dealing with it. But honestly, I am being constantly attacked from within the TI community, and that's my big problem at the moment. That's why I've refused to do interviews, and I refuse to get involved with anybody, because all it brings me is a tsunami of negativity every time. Not, particularly given the Vice documentary, given that. But before it went out, when they told me the reality, I knew that from a legal perspective, I could still back out at that time. But I did say to them, I said, look, whatever, any publicity is good publicity. We need to broaden this debate. You have the audience to enable us to do that. So I'll take the flak, because I know we're telling the truth, and we've got the proof, and we can win this debate. Now, that debate is going off currently, Ella, and we can win it, and we will win it, if more people like you and your organization, as impartial as you are, keep going and stay positive. But we need now to start to out the individuals and the organizations that are making it impossible for us to get the word out. And bear in mind, please, again, that I worked in the mainstream media for 15 years. I know what I'm talking about. And believe me, the biggest problem we have currently lies within the TI community. And that's shocking words, I know, but it's true. All these people out there that are being tortured, that are being gang-stalked, that have had their lives wrecked, their careers ruined. we need to straighten this out. We need some help. We need to get our lives back. We need to protect our children. And I am telling you all, the biggest problem we have, and I'll repeat it again, is certain TIs and certain TI organizations at the moment. The establishment we've set up, the organization we've set up, stands currently to oppose all of them. Not just oppose them, expose them. And I don't know if you've looked at my Facebook page recently, or my blog, Ella, have you?
No, I have not looked. I don't go to Facebook often. I had an account, and they shut it down a long time ago, so I just have a personal one, so I don't get on there often. But I'll definitely take a look tomorrow. Well,
I'm not a huge fan of, well, actually, I won't say that, actually. I think Facebook is very, very important, particularly to a lot of TIs, because they are isolated. They can't integrate into the communities. They can't get out. For that reason, it's very, very important. And I recommend that to a lot of them, they get on there. But it's also fraught with dangers as well, because it can be manipulated like everything else. But I reiterate, a lot of the people on there doing the manipulating are TIs. And we need to confront them. And I've been doing that of late. Are you aware of an operation called the Basis Project?
The what? No. Can you say it one more time, Mel?
The Basis Project.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's an alternative media organization over here. They're affiliated with American organization, well, several, but you'll have heard of Project Camelot?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, affiliated with them, sort of like a version of them over here. Now, it's run by a chap called Miles Johnston. And I spoke live, you might know of that speech, at Marlborough College in 2014. That's when I first encountered this chap. And this was after I'd been censored in the mainstream. So I spoke live. He had no idea what I was going to say, neither did anybody else. I just stood on the stage, and I was supposed to talk about mind control, but I turned around and said, look, and I did it deliberately. I said, I'm going to change what I was going to speak about today, because I can do that future-wise. And I looked at the audience, and I said, look, does anybody know what a TI is? And there was about 2-3 hands out of 200 and odd people. And I said, right, well, I'm now going to educate you as to who they are, and I did. Now, beyond that point, I have dealt with the most horrendous stalking and manipulation and undermining and, well, it's got even worse. It's, physically attacked, the worst, because of this from these people. Now, currently, I alluded to my Facebook page and my blog because I've recently exposed this person as a child pornographer. Now, this is standard in my experience with regards to what we're dealing with, because your government, as is my government, is actually largely controlled by people who have been put in position who can be blackmailed. And the same is the case, largely, I'm discovering in the alternative media. Because the information I was given on this person does not just involve them, it implicates other people, and in America too. And also, essentially, it all comes from Hollywood. And we know the scandals that are breaking there. You've interviewed Stephen Shannon yourself. And he states they're implanting film stars, and they are. Anybody and everybody who can be in a position to get the word out essentially is being taken control of by technological means. Now, we have to stop these people. And they are people. I don't want to hear any talk of aliens. I don't want to hear any talk of race. I'm talking people. I'm talking abuse of power. That's what we're dealing with. And I'm afraid the main protagonists are your government and our government, and the European governments as well. And I certainly don't believe the Russians are totally innocent either. Personally, I think what we get via the news is a pantomime, and privately they're all colluding. There's no point in a nuclear war anymore. They just destroy all the infrastructure. They can just take the radiation, the after effects, and use that to get rid of who they want to get rid of. Maybe I'm broadening things a little bit too much here, but I'm very educated. I do know what I'm talking about, and the bottom line is essentially with me, Ella, I'm a soldier.
Get that sense. Would it be okay to open it up to questions?
Far away, yeah, because I'm running off on a tangent a little bit, but yeah,
that's okay.
Away.
They're all relative and they're all important. So
yeah.
Okay, so if you have a question for Kieron, star 8. We'll take it from there. Star 8. Okay, I see Linda at the top. I'm going to go from the top to the bottom in no particular order, other than I'm going from the top to the bottom. So when I unmute you, you'll hear the notification, and at that point you can ask your question. Okay, Linda? Hi, Linda.
Thanks, Ella. Sir, I've been listening to you, and I want to thank you for your honesty and for saying that things, they can't keep going in circles, or we're just not going to go we're not going to go straight forward if we keep going in circles. And boy, you've got the agreement of so many of us TIs. People are tired of going in circles, and you've got the right idea. Please don't leave us. You said you might be backing off. Please don't do that. We need you. We need somebody with your honesty and your directness and your willingness to jump in there and get it done.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I'll emphasize as well, I'm not alone. I am in touch with other people, but we're rather like-minded these days. Some are still sitting on the fence, but as a collective, we've got the proof, and we just need the state to engage with us, and we're trying to negotiate that situation at the moment. Now, if we're successful, and I believe we will be, we need people behind us. Because that's what's going to hold us back, and that's what is holding us back.
Yeah.
And we can change this. We can turn the situation around. And to quote, some of you might be aware of, I better not mention his name, actually, given what I'm just about to say. He's quite well known in the TR community. But, again, he's somebody that comes in for a lot of flack because of his approach. But he deals with things in boardrooms, right across the board, in the technology sector, in the political sector. And he is completely convinced. He actually said to me a few days ago, look, Kieron, we cannot stop this. This is happening. But TIs can inherit the world. We can take over this situation, and we can start to use this technology for good, and we can stop the torture. I believe him.
Yes. Yes.
I do believe him. But first of all, we need to know who's who and what's what. We need to know who to trust. And I'm not asking for any because I don't take any currently. We need to know who to give our donations and our money to. Because I raised money historically for a TI organisation, and they turned around and targeted me.
Oh, man.
And tried to get more money. That's the sort of thing I'm alluding to, Linda, yeah. That's what I've experienced.
Yeah. Some of it, yeah. So we're aware of that. And thank you for being so bold as to say it just outright, because, that happens. And
well, thank you. I am actually sat here thinking, my word, what have I done? Because I literally woke up on my couch at about 1 minute to 2, and I thought, whoa.
You've done wonderfully.
But, I'm full of it a bit at the moment, Linda, because I've had a very, very hard time over the last few weeks in particular. And, I'll emphasize to folks out there as well that are being targeted, Some of us, the likes of me, I've got technology attached to the backs of my upper jaw, and this stuff moves. They're like long fingers. Mm-hmm. And this is purposely designed to inflict pain upon me. And I'm 52 now and had a doctor tell me when I was 33, I cannot believe you're still alive.
Whoa.
And I'm like, why? He said, because this was designed to terminate your life. You're at level 6, and most people only get to level 2. And it was an Iranian doctor that saved my life. Nobody else in this country would help me. Nobody. I don't tell the truth. It was an English doctor that introduced me to him. And things went from there. And he performed an operation on me. And when I spoke to a barrister, and we tried to present it to the authorities. They said, we can't accept this evidence because the operation was illegal. What a joke. A doctor saves my life by performing an operation on me, then the establishment says, "Oh, we can't accept this because the operation was illegal."
How did they
and
determine
the only reason
that?
he did it is because he kept referring to hospitals and nobody would help me. So he said, "If you guarantee me, there will be no comebacks. If the further complications on this, I'll operate on you now, but I shouldn't do it outside a hospital operating theatre." And I said, "Look, just get in there, Doc. Just get in there."
Do it, yeah.
And he did it. And again, this is another man that Vice tried to speak to, and we just got a message back via his spouse saying that his father had died, he was out the country, and he wasn't going to be contactable for 6 months, which probably wasn't true, but, fair enough. The man saved my life, and I'll be eternally grateful to him as well. But the thing is, as I was saying earlier, if we were together and we had some numbers and some cohesion, we could rally around a man like that and protect him.
Absolutely.
Because we're all individuals and we're just isolated, even when we win a professional over, we can't help them. We can't protect them.
Yeah.
But that's changing, I must add, Linda. That is something that, re my own circumstances and people involved with, it is starting to change now. But that's a process of negotiation I've been through. In creating paper trails, in gathering evidence. And I've put people on the spot, and I've said to them, look, I am going to bring this to fruition, and beyond that point, I'm then going to turn around, and I'm going to be able to prosecute, those that have behaved unethically. And now I've got this evidence. I used to be a salesman. I say to them, look, I'm now going to ask you a direct question, and it demands a yes or no answer. And on this occasion, I said, are you going to maintain your stance that my scans show no abnormalities or not? And I got an answer to the affirmative of that. The guy said to me, I cannot. In the light of this, I have to accept that you've got foreign bodies in your head. I can't state what the technology is because the letter I've got does state it's technology, but I now have to accept that these are foreign bodies. We are on the precipice here, Linda. We are nearly there. We just got to push this over the edge. Even the police here, the meetings I've had, they want to do something about this. We are dealing, and I'm sure it's the same your side of the fence, with a police force within a police force. It's only my opinion again, but I believe we're dealing with a Masonic police force and your regular police force.
Yes.
And from what I've been hearing at the moment, there's divisions that are being created right across the board in the military, in the police force, in the government institutions, and there is a civil war kicking off.
Within the agencies,
totally right across the board.
Yes.
And of course, the reason this isn't going public, and a lot of the people aren't going public, is because if they do, they'll be targeted.
Yes.
And so will their children.
I
was approached years ago when I was blind to what's going on, but my life was being manipulated. I was being gang stalked and all sorts all over the place. But me being me, I was quite a high-profile person in my industry at the time. I started speaking out. And a young lady at the time befriended me, and, things escalated. And I said to her, you didn't introduce yourself to me by randomly, did you? She said, no, I know who you are. And as it turned out, she knew more about my life than I did. But I said to her, look, what is going on? And at that stage, she said to me, look, all I'll tell you at this moment in time is I used to be the PA, that's the personal assistant, to one of the wealthiest men in the world. And he encountered what it is you're dealing with. And he was told directly, if he uses his wealth to try and expose what's happening, they will kill his family first and then him afterwards.
Wow.
That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I was exposed to all this as a young man, and I've been dealing with it ever since. And I've had plenty of attempts on my life, and I'm also advised by retired ex-military people as well. And I've also had it explained to me by another ex-military person what the technology inside of me is. And I know what it is because he told me. This is military technology I'm wearing, and he told me, I know what this technology is because part of my job used to be decommissioning spies. Good luck. I will never talk to you over a telephone again or a computer, but I will meet you face to face if you handwrite a letter to me. that I've got so much information, and I can prove this.
Yeah.
So whilst I'm a TI, very, very much a TI, there's also, there's more to it with regards to me, and I'm not alone in that. And the truth is, my life was supposed to be terminated, as the CIA put it. I was supposed to be thrown from the freedom train in my early 30s, which is standard for spies.
Wow. I want to tell you one thing. You are so good at uplifting right now. I mean, it's like, whoa, this is very exciting to hear you talk about this, and your energy behind it is wonderful. I just have one more question, or just one more statement. I just want to let you know that in this country, things are beginning to happen a little bit. We have a state, Michigan, that just passed a law that stated that no local agency may cooperate with the federal government in whatever they're doing. They may not do that. It's against the law in Michigan. Is that cool or what?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's absolutely brilliant. And I can tell you something, Linda, as well. I grew up, like so many other people, absolutely adoring America.
Yeah.
Your biggest export for decades was your culture, and we loved it.
Really?
And that's completely turned on its head now. But I still believe in your country. I still believe in your perception of freedom. And I still believe you can prevail. But I've got to be honest in that your country is being used just like Germany was in the Second World War. We are the Jews that were taken to the concentration camps. We just don't have to wear red stars on our clothes.
Exactly.
And it's being stealthily now.
Yeah.
But this is what we're dealing with, to my mind, fascism.
Yes.
This is modern-day fascism.
Absolutely.
And your country and your people, as well as mine, our grandparents fought fascism and defeated fascism, yet our governments have delivered fascism.
Yes, both of them.
And that's what we need to turn around. We need to stand up again against fascism and defeat them and bring them down.
Yeah.
And make sure this time that they never, ever raise their ugly fucking heads again. Excuse my French. I've got
no, you're right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And that will take numbers, but we need to do it intellectually. There's no point in us thinking along the lines of violence because they want conflict. That's part of their agenda.
Yeah.
And I'm in touch with people in this country, who control private armies. And I've had in-depth conversations with them, and they've wanted me to get involved with them. And I've said to them ultimately, although I still talk to them, I said, look, you've resigned yourselves to the fact that there's going to be conflict. I cannot accept that. Every sinew of my person and my persona is about avoiding that conflict. So therefore, I cannot get directly involved with you. But I'll continue to communicate with you because I want to change your mindsets. And also, there is a possibility that it's going to come to conflict. And therefore, ultimately I'll have to choose sides. Yeah. But at the moment, I do believe, that we can solve this politically. Yeah. But we can solve it by getting the word out. Because if every mother and father in your country, in my country, in every European country, everywhere, Africa, Asia, wake up to the fact that they're raising their children, into a world which is incredibly dangerous, then they'll do something about it. But at the moment, they don't believe it because of all the subterfuge that's in place and all the negativity and the way we've been conditioned and programmed to be good consumers and compete against each other as opposed to working together. The reason we defeated the Nazis, by and large part, it was because your lot came in and helped it out as well. That the strength of this country, when I was growing up, and I'm a northerner, it's very different where I grew up down south here, it was communities. It was community orientated. And those communities have been decimated, and quite deliberately. And everybody's been turned against everybody. And the TI issue that we're dealing with now, to my mind, and I've written this, and I've said this in speeches I've given, it's all linked to a military tactic called swarming. And it's to foment conditions and environments which are conducive to conflict, to war. They're actually, literally, to my mind again, they're trashing everything. The world, society, communities, because they're ultimately going to offer all the solutions, because this technology can solve everything. a friend of mine again had a meeting with some senior transhumanists, and he laid the TI issue, before them, and the geezer turned around and said, "This technology is going to solve all the problems of the human race. Therefore, I care not about the suffering of 200,000 people."
Wow.
Now, if I'd have been in that meeting, I'd have smacked him in the face.
Yeah.
And said, "Right, come on, let's implant your kids then.
Yeah.
Let's implant your wife.
Yeah.
And your nieces and your nephews.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's illegal. What they're doing is illegal.
It is.
They had the Nuremberg trials after the Second World War. Above all else, the consent must be sought. And what they've done, they've just gone ahead and implanted people surreptitiously anyway.
Yeah.
This is fascism.
It is absolutely fascism, and it's dangerous, and it's growing in this country as we speak. And that scares me. Yeah.
I know, but we need to take them out at the top and not fight on the streets.
Yeah.
They turn us against each other. They'll use any tool they can to turn us against each other. The major one they use is race, and that's an easy one. But I'm somebody that partially grew up in West Africa. We were the only white family for miles, so I got quite conditioned to sort of like being the minority. It was a bit like being Michael Jackson in reverse. But in England, I lived in a village where there was no coloured people whatsoever. And then it was overtly racist. It was almost cultish. The jokes the older men told the younger lads, they were all racially orientated. And it sounds archaic now, but it wasn't that long ago. And that's the way it was geared, and that was to create the divisions, because we've been a warring nation for generations. And so these things are precipitated by the way they treat us when we're growing up. But the world has changed, and personally, although it's been done for negative reasons, I think the key to this is they underestimate human beings. They underestimate our tolerance. I think they believe we would have broken by now. But we're more tolerant towards each other than they realise. And it's political solutions we seek, not destroying each other. It's not natural to most human beings to perpetrate violence. Very, very few human beings are actually violent. And we need to hold that dear, basically, and find solutions. We need to hold our leaders to account. In other words, we need the truth. We need the truth. We need to get the truth out, and if we get the truth out, then they will be forced to have to deal with it. But it's a finely balanced situation given the technology we're dealing with. But we need to act, and we need to act quite soon. Otherwise, well, we're done for, in all honesty. We are, because the transhumanists will prevail, but they're the insane ones, they're the mad ones, and we need to stop them in the tracks. And I'm talking people like Elon Musk as well, because he's just a salesman. The companies that he's fronting, the money for them came from the American taxpayers predominantly. It's just a rip-off.
Really?
They're doing everything they can to take the taxpayers' money to put into private enterprises, and then monopolizing things and passing laws so nobody else can enter the marketplace.
Yeah.
It's called criminality.
Yes. Yes, it's not supposed to be done here. It's not legal. And good. Thank you so much. You are so knowledgeable, and you are so just on the mark. And thank you so much. Just do not leave us, please. We need you. We really do.
Well, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I am rather opinionated. I'm waking up now as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've taken up enough of your time, but
Oops.
Shut up.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Cut me off in the middle of my sentence. It's okay. I'm just
like that. Just kidding. Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Had to have a little fun there.
Yeah, why not? No, what a great guest, Ella. Thank you so much for bringing this gentleman on. My God.
No, so I feel very blessed. Thank you, Linda. So, well, this is the deal. We have like 20 questions, and I'm sure he's going to be very tired if we, so let's see. So
I've actually woken up now, to be honest with you, Ella. I was in quite a bad way earlier because I've been microwaved quite heavily recently, and when I woke up I was thinking, I shouldn't do this, but I feel fine at the moment. Honestly, it feels like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, get your mind all going here. I'm going to go to Melinda Fee. I'm going to go ahead and unmute her. Hi, Melinda. Sometimes it takes a second. The other phone muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Let me mute the computer. Kieron, hi. It's so nice to hear your voice and what you have to say. Let me ask you, are you the gentleman with the long ponytail? Have you ever had a long ponytail?
Yeah, that's me.
Aha, gotcha, babe. Anyway, my name's Melinda Fee. I've been an actress in Hollywood TV and film for 35 years. I was the wife of David McCallum in his show called The Invisible Man.
Wow.
It was very big in England, if you were there. Good. I've been targeted, I think, for 20 years. I became a knowing TI in 2013. I do have an idea, and yet, of course, I don't have an idea. We always want to know where it comes from. I think the problem my feeling is with the TI community, and I'll say this openly, is that there are very few TIs that I would want to know if we weren't TIs. In other words, people are who they are, and we are attracted to them or we're not. And being a TI, and we're attracted, and as a TI, we all have extra burdens on us. We are not truly free ourselves or to be ourselves. There's always a cloak we have to watch or be careful of, even on the phones, even in the lounge, which is a call you might enjoy. It's a later call after Ella's, but everybody gets much looser then. But still, it's hard I live in just over the hill from Hollywood in Beverly Hills, but it's hard in even Hollywood for people to get together. It's in the United States. It's such a huge country. They have meetings and big roll-ups, and let's go to Washington. Well, so many, including myself, cannot afford to fly to Washington. And
Melinda,
they
the
planned it very carefully in this country. I know Britain is small, and you guys can drive your minis and you can get places, but here everything is impossible to get to. And when we have just small support meetings, they'll have 22 RSVPs, and 3 will show up. And in every meeting I've gone to, there's been only 3 to 5, as opposed to the 50 or 20 who are going to come.
Yeah,
they don't show up. So you're right about, gosh, we're our own worst enemies, and yet we have this curse on us that makes it so hard to be out there and real and alive and everything.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, explaining that at the end of the day we're just people, and human beings don't all get on with each other, and that's a matter of fact. Just because we're all being targeted, that doesn't change, and that's the case. And also, with what we're dealing with, it makes life more difficult as well. But the point I was trying to make is that the organizations and the people that have been at the forefront have not been doing anything to solve that. In reality, in my experience, they've been self-serving. Mm-hmm. They've been looking to make money, to forward themselves, and therefore facilitating the lack of cohesion that there is.
Yeah. I also think the program makes us a bit narcissistic because we have nobody to think about but ourselves. And do you know what I mean? We just go around in circles, isolated.
And you're like, yeah, it's true, because you're worried and you're thinking about yourself and where somebody is and who they are, and it's that you're in pain and me. It happens because you're in a tortured state. So it's understandable, but you're right. You do get self-concerned. That's the best word. Yeah, self-concerned.
And some end up, you're right, Kieron, feeling entitled. I met a couple of those, and I've never had the feeling that I was entitled, and I always had to work for things. But there ends up this feeling of being entitled. I can hear it on the calls sometimes, and
well, call me
I think
but I think it's quite a healthy thing to have to work for things and earn things.
Agreed. Just absolutely in alignment with that. Yes.
And
I don't believe anything should be free, even if you have to pay $1. You'll respect it more.
Even the wealthy kids I knew when I was younger, the smart parents still made them work. They didn't give them anything, or didn't give them a great deal. But the ones that were spoiled, grew up to be arseholes, to be frank. Sorry, my language again. But yeah, we're talking human nature here. But the point I was making, you read the lack of cohesion, is the lack of leadership, essentially, or the poor leadership that people have had. And believe me, I'm not somebody that particularly wants to lead. I'm very much quite a loner by nature. I don't necessarily need to be social. I'm quite happy with my small group of friends and anonymity. The last thing I ever wanted to be was in the public eye. I had the opportunities when I was young, and when I was younger, and I wasn't interested, for those reasons. But there's no choice now. But we are talking, people who are professing to be trying to help us that are doing the exact opposite, and this is coming to light. And there's, if you look into what I'm producing online now, and I'm not doing this just alone, we are sort of like shedding a light on things. We are uncovering things, and we are explaining. Look, the people that are purporting to help us here and help us get the word out are not. They're suppressing it. They're not helping us. Mm. And now we've been doing some digging and getting to grips with who these people are. I'll say it. In my experience, most of my perpetrators, most of the people that have that I'm referring to now, or the organisations, are either Masonic organisations or they're Masons.
Same thing, aren't they? Masonic organizations and Masons.
Yeah, but to my mind, I believe that what we're dealing with, this is a Masonic agenda. The Freemasons are the problem, that's the issue, and we need to sort the situation out. And it's happened before historically. A very famous book called Proofs of a Conspiracy, written by John Robinson, who was a senior Freemason. The book is all about warning people about this agenda. I said to Ella when we were talking recently, look, we're dealing with the same people that killed JFK.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going global. This agenda is being rolled out globally, and I'm afraid it's also the spoils of war. This is what the Nazis were planning. We prevailed in the war, and all they've done is they've taken the scientists and taken the technology and the ideas, and then they've adopted them themselves. I'll even go so far as to state that I believe the Second World War was just a ruse, a deception to bring this to mass, and that financiers financed both sides of the war. And something else I point out, which is very irrelevant to you guys out there in California as well, when we were dealing with the Blitzkrieg during the Second World War, and we were practically begging the Americans to come in and help us, one of the things that we conceded, or we ceded at the time, was control of the moving picture industry. Now that's a very poignant point to make, because that happened. And after the Second World War, Hollywood boomed. And Hollywood is controlled by the same financiers and the same people that are behind this agenda, because it's propaganda.
Yeah, they call it the CIA's Hollywood extension.
Yeah. And I didn't actually put it up tonight, but as an extension to what I'm doing at the moment of working on, I was going to put that song out, Burn Hollywood Burn, because, I love your country and I love your people, but I am sick to flipping death of what's coming out of Hollywood of late and what I'm learning, because they're just taking fact and turning it into fiction. And I know a lot more than I can say now, to be honest with you, as well. I'm not saying overall everybody, but the rest of the world is getting very, very, very fed up with being told what to think and how to behave and by by bodies that we don't feel we can trust anymore, we don't feel are doing us any good, that are undermining the basis of our societies, and if we're going to counter these people, it might sound a bit, what's the word I'm searching for? If we're going to be able to do anything about this, we need to instill virtue in the next generation, virtuous qualities. We're dealing with Satanists, you know. And I know a lot about this. I won't go into a lot of detail now, but the way we're being educated and we're being brought up, our kids are playing into their hands because they've got their own rules. They've got their own set of rules, and that is really that they have a right to check licentiousness. But yet our kids are being brought up to behave in a licentious fashion. It's like jazz musicians and the like. They say, right, if you want a career, you've got to sell your soul. And the same is being applied across the board. And unless we re-educate and we do break through, we do get through to people, and they do accept what's going on, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And we're just going to have another major war. And this time it's going to be more catastrophic than any we've had before. And it won't even necessarily be fought with bullets and guns. It'll be fought with frequencies, as it is being doing at the moment. But as TIs, you know, the bottom line is we are literally being tortured and murdered. We know that, and we need to do something about it. And we've been trying for a very, very long time now. So we have to point the finger and ask the questions. Why have we got nowhere? So why the people at the forefront? You know, what have you done? Where's all the money gone? Because I know there's been thousands upon thousands of money donated, and it's gone nowhere. It's gone into people's pockets, and it still is. It still is going into people's pockets. And this is, you know, I don't believe the situation is wholly reversible, but I do believe we can take control of things politically. And, you know, I'm getting older now. I am, but I've got a daughter, and I've got friends with children. And it's them I'm preoccupied with. You know, it's the next generation. I just curse the fact that I was born of my generation, and this is happening. You know, but nonetheless, it is happening. So therefore, you know, we have to involve ourselves because we have to do something about it. But education is always the solution, and education doesn't happen overnight. So to actually really, really start to make a difference, we have to break the media. We have to take control of the media, even if it's the alternative media. And at the moment, with what we're uncovering, it's exactly the same as the mainstream, but it's organized in a different way. Very, very bad people are controlling it, and they are perpetrators, and they are handlers, and they are latching on to anybody that services and taking control of them and trying to destroy them. And I could name a few ladies now that would back me up 100% on this. Because we're trying to out the people currently that we know have been doing this, and if we can achieve that, and we can get the truth out, we can get the word out. As I've said before, they underestimate human beings. We can do something about this if people accept it. And one of the things we need to take on board is that Vice documentary was an attempt to get the word out. Can I just emphasize this point, Melinda, as well, because this is important, because this is why I'm talking to you now, because I appeared in that documentary. When I explained earlier that I got this phone call about the release of the documentary, and it was over an hour they were on the phone, they said, Kieron, you're going to like this. You know, it's in your favor. We believe you. We want to do something about this as well because we care. We've done everything we can to side with you guys. Now that was the Friday night, and it was going out on the Saturday at 1 o'clock. And they were also going to they were going to send a photographer around, a crew round to take photographs, and they were going to blast this out across their platforms, right across the board. And then they chose to put one small flyer out on Facebook 24 hours, well, less than 24 hours before the documentary was due to be released, and try and get it out as quick as possible before they could be stopped. And it was stopped literally overnight, you know. But people need to understand, and I'm still, even though we've had to put up with what we've had to put up with, and my friend was pilloried, I'm still going to stand by Vice as an organization and tell people that they really did try to bust the bubble on this. They really did try to get the word out, and they were stopped. And that is a matter of fact. And I pray and I hope that when the climate changes, with all the information they got, them and other companies will wade in, because they know it's in their interest too. I'll tell you this, Melinda, Well, they'd interviewed me twice, Vice, and they came around many times over an 8-month period. And in the first 2 interviews, there were young people. Yeah, they actually said to me, I said, look, people have asked me what the crew are like, and they said, what did you say? I said, like the Scooby-Doo kids. And they didn't like that very much. They thought it was, whatever. But after they'd been a couple of times, they turned up and they said, look, Kieron, the cameras are off, the microphones are off, can we ask you a question? I said, fire away. Do you think we'll get targeted for making this documentary? I said, do you think you're being targeted? And the director said to me, let's just say a lot of really bad shit's happening in my life. And I said, we told you, both of us told you that this is real and that it's very, very dangerous. And I fear for those people's safety still. Like anybody that gets directly involved with me and like anybody that's encountering this information, it's dangerous. Even I've had a guy come around here a couple of times. He used to work for MI5. It was military intelligence over here. And he was wanting to try and help. And he said to me, I went to the police myself at one point. I was talking to quite a senior officer, and I said to him, why won't you help TIs? Why won't you get involved? And he said the answer I got was, because if we even attempt to try and help them, we will become a target. To which my answer was, what's he doing in the police force then if he's going to give in to blackmail? We don't want pussies in police force. We want hard men who are going to stand up to fucking criminals, not kowtow. But this is the problem we got, and the problem is information. It's the media. If we can break things in the media, believe me, the vast majority of police officers and serving all service personnel would get together and do what they can to stop this. They would do what's right, but they can't because of the current climate.
I think that's very true.
I'm afraid in your country as my country, we're being controlled by a bunch of people who've been put in place because they're blackmailable. That's the problem. And the media industries know this. I mean, I worked on the inside. I could name all sorts of names that they've got information on, people that should be in prison. But they're not in prison because they're protected, because they're part of this system, this agenda. And I don't know if you're aware, but not too long ago it came out that Edward Heath, our Prime Minister, that actually sold us into the European Union, persuaded us to go in. I mean, we were just told it was a common market. It was going to be good for our economy, and we were all going to sort of like have a higher standard of living. But it now turns out that he was not only a paedophile, he was a child murderer. But yet he was our Prime Minister. And this wasn't that long ago. And we happen to know that our political system is still riddled with like-minded people, similar people. One or two of which I've outed myself. But yeah, I'm holding my hands up now, and I will state that I can get away with a lot more than most people can because of who I am, but not only that, because of the court cases I've won. It hasn't actually helped me in life. It's just protected me. It's just the state have laid off. They've stopped trying to lock me up. They've stopped trying to drug me. They leave me alone because every time they put me in a formal situation, I win through. But we need more voices. We need people all together, and we need to confront them in unison. But I just totally agree with you with regards to a TI situation. We're in isolation. We're human beings. We're like animals in traps. I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, it's enough trying to survive in life, but that's why it's so important that those trying to get the message through can be trusted and are known, because the majority at the moment, believe me, are not trustworthy at all. They're self-interested, and they're behaving as though, well, they're behaving like people I used to know in the corporate sector, where it was dog eat dog. I mean, that was the game. It's accepted. But people's lives are on the line here. This isn't about cash. This is about life and death.
I know.
And those attitudes should not be prevailing. And currently, at the moment, I'm not alone in the fact I've had enough. I've had enough with regards to what's going on. And either we get somewhere before long, or we've got to get radical. We've got to do something. We've got to hit back. We've got to kick back in some way, shape, or form. But the main thing is, and the focus is the concentration should be on the media, not the mainstream. Forget it. Forget your ABC News. I know your president's been at war with them before he got elected, and rightly bloody so. But it's the alternative media. I mean, for instance, I was an Alex Jones fan. He's a bit difficult for Brits to take because he's so overboard. But currently, there's so much information coming back and people saying, look, he's done nothing about the TI issue. He knows all about it. So why isn't it coming out? Why isn't he putting the word out? If he's so anti-establishment, but he's not. Why? Why aren't others? Because they're not allowed to exist if they do. Because it's a system of blackmail and coercion.
Yeah, well, that's the problem in our mainstream media, too. I mean, like Geraldo Rivera would do great investigative exposés on things. And then he all of a sudden just didn't do those things anymore, and his stuff was really quite good when he was younger. And I think he's been warned.
Of course.
And this is the kind of story that he would have loved, 20 years ago. But now it could cost him his job, maybe his life.
Yeah, well, that's the reality. Do you know of Jill Dando? You sound like you're pretty educated on things. Do you know who Jill Dando is?
No, I don't.
Or was? Well, she used to be a BBC presenter, and she presented a show called Crime Watch, in which they highlighted crimes and they put the word out, to the public. And they used to solve a lot of crimes, catch a lot of really bad people this way. But she was murdered in cold blood, shot in the head outside a home. But the word is that she was going to blow the whistle on the inside. And this was an establishment.
We have one like that. Her name is Cheryl Atkinson, and she was CBS very prime journalist, and she was let go because she was going to expose something. And of course, what they did is ruin her career.
Yeah.
She wrote a book called Smear. And it was a bestseller because people were really curious about her. Now she has an online program, and I get announcements once a week. And she does expose some pretty good things. Ella, I think, has tried to get a hold of her. I've written her, but there's been no response. But they're few and far between. But she's very good, and people do listen to her.
Yeah, I was talking to Ella the other day, and explained that, in America, there's been quite a lot of high-profile cases where American footballers have gone on a drug-fueled murderous rampage. Now, at least a percentage of those, probably the majority, have been TIs because they've got contracts with millions of dollars. And if they decide they don't want that player anymore and they want to get out of that contract, they target them.
Mm-hmm.
They mind control them. They're even fixing football matches with technology. They're all
augmented. They're fixing all sports.
Everything in the world is rigged.
Everything.
Everything
Boxing,
is rigged.
Everything.
Yeah, and it's turned me off. I mean, I was a footballer, it was my life. But my friends, my best friend these days is Italian. He's football mad as well. But this year, for the first year, I've hardly watched a game. And it's because he was with me at the time. I watched a game, and I knew it was fixed. And I got him to watch it with me. It was an Italian game as well. And he said, I agree. I think this is as well, watching it. And I explained, because I'd never been a betting man, but being a TI, I was just sat on my own, isolated at home. I thought, well, I know football, I'll have a bet. And I was doing very well. But I stood to win a fortune this night, and I thought the odds were a bit good. And it was a late night match, and I thought, yeah, it's a prime one for fixing. And we watched it, and it was obviously bloody fixed. And it just switched me off, completely switched me off, like it has done so much else in life, Melinda. It's just, I said it to my doctor when he signed me off work again, because he's a good man, my doctor. To be honest with you, we had some very candid conversations, and I said to him, I said, look, my experience of life is that everything, absolutely everything, is rigged. So it's a waste of time unless you're willing to toe the line or pursue a profession like yours, which is, you get your education, you get your qualification, then you got a job, and it's in a specific field. If you want to be, as I am, which is a creative person, an entrepreneur, you've got to sell out at some point, otherwise you're going to get taken out and robbed. Mm-hmm. That's the world. And your country, as well as my country, is a Masonic-run country, and I'm not going to back off from that. The Freemasons are responsible for what we're dealing with. They're the problem. They're the issue. But that's my opinion. But it's shared by a great many.
No, I think you're right. I think it's in the books that have come out. Pike.
I mean, why do we
Pike.
need? Yeah, why do we need secret societies? Why should we have secret societies that hide all the information, that hide the knowledge, that hide the truth, and that treat us as though, we're just there to basically make the money? We're like slaves to them, essentially. And I grew up in quite an affluent area, and a lot of people were privileged, but I was talented, so I never really paid much attention to it because I was very good at sport, and I was my own man, and I did my own thing, and I didn't care for institutions and the like. I knew I was never going to be suitable to those, but I understood why other people might be, because it offers some security in life, some platform. But no, it basically they've recruited these people. They hide behind privilege, basically. But what they do is they train them to be abusers, and they forward them in life if they abuse others. They don't forward you for no reason. They forward you because you do deeds. This is why it's a tiered system, and every level I descend through dispels the myth of the last. So everybody involved is being hoodwinked. And it's like joining a criminal gang. Once you're in, you can't just get out. This is why when they're initiating you, they put a noose around your neck and a dagger to your heart. They're telling you then, you ever go against us and you're dead. And this is gangster shit,
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Very
like,
much.
it's just like in Italy, the mafia run things. Everybody knows it, and in there it's quite visible because they know who they are. They're in the community and they're figureheads, and everybody just kind of. Well, I've been told when I talk to people about it, we just feel impotent. We know, but we can't do anything about it. It's pointless. We're dealing with the same thing, but it's not so visible. So if anything, they're more honourable in Italy because at least they're open and honest about it. But here they hide in the shadows. They don't show themselves. And they've got people placed in all walks of life. They've got solicitors, doctors, and if a TI engages the authorities and tries to do something about it, they end up dealing with, and usually if they've got one, their attorney is a Freemason. The judge is a Freemason. Members of the jury are Freemasons. The doctors are giving the evidence of Freemasons. The psychiatrists are Freemasons. It's one big stitch-up. It's just rigged. So as an individual, you're never going to get anywhere. And this is a problem with TIs and why they make it so difficult for us to group together, to have any cohesion and coercion. Because they know then we could confront them. Then we could do something about this. So they decimate that, and they keep us isolated, and they keep us separated, and they keep us divided, and they keep us at each other. So we're always only individuals. And as I've just explained, if an individual steps forward, they get surrounded, ring-fenced, and they get nowhere. There's some amazing people your side of the fence. I mean, do you know Richard Kane?
Yes. Was he the one who had the implants removed?
Yeah, he's an attorney, though. Has he actually had them removed now?
And he accepted an offer, and he has a non-disclosure agreement, I think.
Right. Well, fair play him. But what about his kids? Because his kids were implanted as well. Did he get them?
Well, they got the implants out of the kids, too.
Well, that is brilliant news. Brilliant. Well, he's done fantastically well. But I thought when I first encountered this guy and I listened to him talk, I thought, you are sharp, mister. You are sharp, you are smart, and you are hard. And I'm not surprised to hear that you've said that he's been successful there. But again, he's not in a position where he can help anybody else now, is he?
No, that's the problem, isn't it, with civil suits rather as opposed to criminal.
It is. Well, that's brilliant news. I didn't even know he'd had the implants out. I knew he went quiet on the internet, and that was probably part of the deal. And to be honest with you, Melinda, there's been times in my life I actually think I might have actually got some help myself. Doctors have actually motioned to help me, but when I go back, I get completely different doctors that deny the initial meetings I've had have ever taken place. But I think, I don't know, with regards to my stuff, I think it's more to do with, it's what I've actually got inside of me. I mean, I haven't just got, a couple of small implants and stuff. I am literally wired up from my head to my feet. It's,
wow.
From what I understand, it's the Medusa system, which was developed by Jose Delgado, who was Spanish, but he went to work for the American Navy.
Have they ever stopped you walking on the street? Have they ever frozen your legs?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, me too. So I'm wired, I guess, from head to toe also.
They can completely control me. They can, they can take over me, and I'm just like a spectator in my own body, really. They've even done this and given me demonstrations of it, to prove that they can, and they do, and all the things that we've read about over the years. I didn't want to go down that route, to be honest, so I won't. No, I don't want to go down that route tonight at all. But yeah,
well, if you ever need a corroborating, I can't say the word corroborating witness, I've got the same thing. They have frozen me, and they have opened my arms when I was holding things that dropped on my foot. Now I have complete degenerative arthritis of the foot. They've just destroyed my body in every way.
I'm sorry, love. How old are you now?
I'm 75.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't really quite look it, but boy, this morning I sure felt it.
Yeah. Well, it's not exactly, I'm sure, what you were looking forward to in your
no,
twilight.
I'm waiting for my golden years. Tell me how long I have to wait.
It's horrendous, love. It's just the worst.
Yeah, it is.
Imaginable to have your body invaded by technology, and I've got friends who deal with it now 24/7. They've got people in their heads winding them up about it. It's so destructive. It's so negative. It's just as bad as things get. It's worse than satanic, to be honest with you.
We often say on the phones, we can't believe this is happening in America. It's just unbelievable. It is so demonic and satanic. There are no words to describe
I think that's why people who aren't involved in the general populace can't take it on board, because it is so unbelievable. It's like our own government is perpetrating this against its own citizens. I sat there in a tribunal once, and I said, look, in this country we pay national insurance. I said, look, I've worked for all these years and paid national insurance so that if anything's wrong with me, I can go to the doctors and I can get health care. But yet I find out that I've paid all that money and worked all those years to find out that the healthcare system is responsible for not only implanting me with all this technology, for covering it up as well and lying about it. It doesn't get any worse. The word I'm using these days to describe what we're dealing with is a kakistocracy. And if you don't know what that is, it's the worst possible form of governance.
Well, I
can't imagine it could be any worse.
Technocracy, oligarchy, police state.
Yeah, well, I'm all for sort of like, I'm all for a revolution, but they've got all the bloody the weapons and the technology, but I do believe it can happen. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen inside our institutions, because one of the most, one of the most enlightening, I've had several of them. The meetings I've had with police have been, I wished I'd recorded them, I tell you, because, I go in and I really sort of like, I don't lead with my chin, I take my time, and I get them to engage me before I do. But when I open up and I start giving them evidence, they can't believe it themselves. They are gobsmacked. And when I start explaining to them that you're more at risk than being implanted than anybody else, they really do start to get up in arms, because they're not stupid. A lot of them know an amount about it. And even the handsets they carry, in this country, they're run on something called the Tetra system.
Tetra is putting more microwaves in their body.
Yeah, it's so many of them are getting cancer, particularly brain tumors.
Oh, it's so sad.
They don't give a damn about anyone, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a soldier, whether you're a nurse, a doctor. And the sooner people wake up to this, the better. And I think it's straightforward. We just need to get together and confront Freemasonry. It's evil. It's satanic. And it's the slavers. They call us the profane, which is the non-believers. And they mean the non-believers in Satan. So, and quite a few people now, particularly one or two girls that we've interviewed recently, and they've examined their lives, and what's come out is quite a few of them have actually turned around and said, crumbs, my father declined joining the Freemasons. And we're like, that keeps coming up. And then we're finding out that those fathers that declined joining the Freemasons, their children are the ones being targeted.
Well, I heard my father was a Freemason, but I think that was in San Francisco.
Doesn't make you immune. My family are quite clearly Masonic. I mean, my grandfather was a regimental sergeant major, and you don't get that rank in the British Army unless you're a Freemason. It's quite obvious to me now that they were. But also, a lot of people that join the Masons, you have to give something to join. And I've read testimonies of some American whistleblowers on this front that have made 33rd degree and whatever. They've just been shocked and horrified as to what they'd had to give. But people who don't have a lot often have to give a relative.
Mm-hmm.
And those relatives are, they go through the standard MK Ultra, I call it standard like it's run-of-the-mill now, trauma-based mind control. So they can be controlled and utilized throughout their lives like a commodity. And that's what they're all about. Unless,
in Hollywood, a lot of it is your firstborn son. And if you go back over the deaths of the firstborn sons with movie stars and producers and directors, it's quite a huge number.
It rings true, does it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I've known some.
Well, I believe you. I believe you on that front as well, because the patterns are there, and they, you've just got to go back and examine things over a period of time, and it's just very evident, really, isn't it? But these practices have to stop. No child, is capable of making decisions for themselves till, really, I believe at least 18. But yet these decisions are being made before they know anything of the world. Their lives are being taken over. It's called slavery, Melinda. It's called slavery. It has to stop. It has to stop. And I hope and I pray that it does. I'm having to curtail myself a little bit now with regards to what I'm saying.
Well, listen, Kieron, it was wonderful talking with you, and I wish us all the best of luck and fortitude and God's strength to find a source. I always say something else is going to be knocked wide open, and it will be an opportunity for us to rush right through. I've always felt that. Something else has to go first.
I agree with you. But also, I don't believe that, yours or ours, police force and military are all bad at all. I don't think they're all in on this. I'm sure it's divided.
I agree.
And I think the answers lie in that. I really hope so. They're as confused, a lot of them, and as mind-controlled and as pooped up as we are. But, I think the most confusing thing about America, actually, to be honest with you, is the amount of bloody guns you got there. But I do understand with what's going on.
Well, you better maybe one day thank your blessings. Well. Yeah, but they're keeping those guns just because of what we're talking about.
I know. And because of that instance, I stay out of that argument because I can fully understand it. I'm actually in the camp of William Cooper. He's a man that I thought was spot on.
He was wonderful, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and what
David Icke, what do you think of David Icke?
Ooh. Mixed bag, really. And in all honesty, I haven't paid that much attention to him. I tend to steer clear of most things that aren't sort of like, straightforward. To my mind, the way I put it is that I want to focus on the practical side of things, on the legal aspect of matters and the political aspect of matters. I'm not dismissive, ultimately, given all I've been exposed to, that there is some sort of like non-human element to this, ultimately. But if it's anything, I believe it's Nephilim. And that's what I've got that information from military people, not the likes of David Icke. I don't believe it's all nonsense. I do believe there's some truth in it, but this is how the media works. It's how it covers things up. It's how disinformation operates. And we need the TI.
Well, he also went off on Heath like you did, and has been mentioning the pedophiles and how they rule the world. And
oh heck yeah, no, I'm not totally dismissive of a lot of what he says. It's the reptilian stuff and whatnot. I just don't want to go there, Melinda, to be honest with you, because the problem I've had in this country, and I know it's the same in yours, because the people here are involved with people in America, is when I got involved with them, I said, look, the TI issue has to be separated from everything else. This is torture and murder, and we can prove it. Yet you're putting it out, hand in hand with sort of like, all sorts of different theories. There's nothing theoretical about this. We're being microwaved, we're being implanted, and we're being killed. So I don't even think it should be mentioned in the same breath as this stuff. But they do it on purpose, because whilst there's a lot of truth in there, the mere fact that truth is being put out with a lot of stuff which can't be even substantiated is just immediately written off in most regular people's minds as conspiracy. And if it's conspiracy, it's not proven.
I'm going to let you go, but I think the 5G is going to be, hopefully people will wake up to that. And also Barry Trower. Do you know Barry Trower? You must have heard.
I do know Barry personally.
Yeah,
but...
and he's really done some wonderful work in that area about how we've been destroyed by the air and the technology.
Well, Barry's a wonderful man. I must stress that I'm not personally connected to him. I can't meet him because of who I am. But when I did speak to him, I said, look, Barry, I never thought as a younger man that I'd grow up to have a microwave weapons expert as a hero, because he is my hero. Mm-hmm. He's a wonderful man. And he's the sort of people that we need. Unfortunately, he's moved away from the TI issue by and large. He's really campaigning these days more about Wi-Fi in schools and the dangers to children. And rightly so, but I should imagine that he didn't have a lot of choice other than to move away from the TI issue, to be frank with you, because as I alluded to earlier, it's a military tactic. And he's ex-military, and he knows all about it. But he is a genuine philanthropic, and he's just one of the most wonderful human beings that's ever lived, as far as I'm concerned. And we all owe him a great deal. And
I wanted to not have this power, of course, but it has to be someone from the country. But I always wanted to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. But it has to be someone over yonder. Can't be us.
He will be deserved of it, and I'm sure posthumously something along those lines, and he deserves it because he's put his life at risk very much. In fact, the story behind Barry, the reason he decided to come out of retirement was he was asked to go and investigate a cot death. I believe it might have been 2. But when he went to investigate, he established that there were 2 frequencies crossing at the exact point this cot was. And I think it was to do with Gwen Towers. And he said at that point, I cannot stay silent any longer knowing what I know. They're killing children with this stuff. And so he stepped out of retirement and he started speaking publicly. And do you know the man won't take any money either? He won't take payment.
I believe it.
Yeah. He's changed policy in other countries, but in our country, they're just, fascist. I nearly said something else, but I won't. I won't go too overboard.
Well, I think greed is pretty big in this country.
Well, it's a corporate problem, in truth, isn't it? And corporate entities are by nature greedy. They're all about profit and expanding. Even my local council is a corporation now, and when the paedophile scandal broke here with the Jimmy Savile scandal, we had Lord Patton, his name is. He used to be the governor of Hong Kong when we handed that over to the Chinese. He was then head at the BBC, and he came out to do a press conference, and the first thing he said was, the British Empire is a non-living entity. In other words, we can do what we freaking want. You can't do anything about it. And that's the joke, because they're hiding behind laws that they've created.
Well, that's the same here.
That's how and why they're getting away with this.
It's the same here. We are a corporate United States.
Indeed.
Incorporated.
Reverse that situation. We can reverse that situation. And I must add, having said all I've said, and I'm loath to make this statement, I actually do believe as well that inside the Masons and the Illuminati per se, which is a schism of Freemasonry, it's all encompassing. That there's good and bad. And that the conflict is going off in-house as well. I object to secret societies, full stop. But, given this is the scenario we've got to remember that the founding fathers of America were Freemasons.
Yeah.
And they wrote the Constitution, and they abided by this Constitution, and it's been abused since. It's been perverted and turned around. And I believe it was happening beforehand, but I believe the assassination of JFK was the catalyst. That's when things changed. That's when they started subverting your country, and thereafter the rest of the world as well. So, given that the origins lie in Freemasonry, John Robertson, the book I mentioned earlier, was a senior Freemason, and he had been most of his life, but he was aware of this conspiracy that had been fermented inside Freemasonry. And it's like the police force over here. There's a lot of talk about, for some time, they changed their recruitment policies. I mean, they used to go for high IQs and certain qualities, but now they're going for more thug-type qualities, more Neanderthal types. More
same
basic.
here. Same in America.
Yeah, and that's creating more of an us and them situation. But again, I've got to say there's opposition to it all. But personally, I just think we need to outlaw secret societies. If we're going to have governments, they should be free of influence of secret societies. Otherwise, basically, I know it's not very feasible these days because there's so flipping many of us and we won't be able to feed each other. But we should withdraw our labour. We should just, civil disobedience right across the board, saying, right, you want your bloody country to run, you run it. Because we're not voting for you, we're not paying taxes for you anymore, because all you're doing is abusing us. And if we can get the truth out and the message through, it can happen. We can turn this around. We can take the power off them at least, and then we can apply this technology to creating, a better world essentially. Because we can solve all the problems. We've got free energy. We can clean up the oceans, we can clean up the skies, but we're not. They're still polluting everything. These people, the word I use, and I believe they wholly are, is perverts. They pervert everything. And if we go against nature, things aren't going to go well. Things are not going to go well. Go with nature, we'll be fine. Go against nature, we're looking at catastrophe, and that's what these people are doing. You can't mess with frequencies the way that they're doing. You can't mess with biology the way that they're doing and expect things to turn out well. But I don't think they care, because it's in all the Disney movies and the like. They're looking to create an underclass, that will forever be subservient, and that they will enhance themselves genetically, and they will be the elites for forever and a day. But I say no. We need to take them out before we get that far, essentially. Because it can't happen. It can't happen. It's perverse.
It is.
It's perverse.
Well, Kieron and Melinda, at this point, actually, the interview's about to end because of the time, but I still have 20 questions. So I was thinking about how we could do this, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but how would you feel about coming back next Thursday at the same time?
Yeah, I could do that, yeah.
Good. Okay, because you're a great guest.
As well. As I said, I woke up in a bit of a start tonight and thought, but I'm nursing a dying dog at the moment. He's had a stroke, and we're trying to see if he can bounce back, and I have to follow him everywhere. So I'm pretty dead on my feet, as well as being microwaved and everything else. But I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been an experience.
Well, thank
So
you.
can we
again.
find you on Facebook?
Say that again.
Yeah, we're not quite done. Yeah.
You're not quite done.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you is I wanted you to give anything you want people to take a look at. Give your Facebook if you want people to be able to find you there. Share your.
Oh wow, this is really controversial stuff at the moment, given what I've put out. But why not? Because we're trying to change things, and we're trying to.
That's right.
So if you want to look at my blog, it's chroniclesofamindcontroltarget.com.
Wonderful. And then you have your filming.
There's our YouTube channel. I've got my own YouTube channel, but I've not really worked on that for a while. But that's Kieron Lee Perrin, which is my name. But our main channel is TI Television, TI-Television.
Okay, and like I said, I've never had so many questions a couple of times, but you're one of those people where everybody wants to speak with you, so I appreciate that you're willing to come back on. If you sleep through it, that's okay. We'll get through. I'll read the news or something like that, but I would be really happy if you could come back next week as well.
I'll be more than willing. As I said, I'm very tentative now with regards to what organisations. Well, you'll understand that if you read my blog, particularly currently, and I'm quite comfortable with this. And we do need to communicate with an American audience as well, because TI Television is focusing on the situation in the UK, but that's purely because, there's lots of reasons, and they're obvious as to why we are, because it's our manner essentially, but. It doesn't mean that we don't want a global audience and we're not willing to entertain people from other countries, because this is a global issue, as everybody knows. But here in the UK, we're trying to focus and do something about what's happening here, and not just myself. I'm not the only one that's had some major breakthroughs here and got the authorities off the backs, and they leave us alone. And in fact, more than that, I'll go as far to say is that. To a degree, they're on our side. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be operating. People do want change. They do want this stopped. I mean, for crying out loud, what parent wouldn't? Right.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as being a parent myself, the number one reason probably that I do what I do to the level that I do it. I just can't imagine kids being a part of this world or anything. You just brought up kids, so it's really important that we try and change what's going on and do the best that we can. So that's all we can do. But will you do me a favor, and for everyone else, will you spell your name so people can look? Sometimes I even misspelled your last name earlier, so I was hoping that you could spell it for everybody.
My first name's Celtic and my last name's French, so people struggle. It's Kieron, Kieron, that's Kieron, Kieron. My middle name is Lee, L-E-E, like General Lee, and Perrin, P-E-R-R-I-N, which is actually Perrin.
I think I put an O in there. Well, again, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And if something comes up, I completely understand, because I know this is not the best time of the day for you. But if you can do it, I look forward to it, and then we'll be in touch maybe one time for that.
Great. Thank you very much as well.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. And then everybody, if you guys want to go to another call, feel free. If you want to go to the Late Night Lounge, as we like to say, it is 125-472. Again, that's 125-472. And I hope you guys can check out the radio show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the rainforest. It may not interest you, but if it does, you can go to Revolution Radio, which is freedomslips.com, and hit the little cassette player-looking type device and hit Studio A at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard, and you can hear this wonderful gentleman talk about the rainforest. And then if you guys want to hear, about the Ella Free channel, but if you guys want to hear some of the interviews I've given, there's still about 12 more that need to go up. I'm backed up, as you guys know. The technology aspect is hard, keeping up on top of the videos and everything. You can go to the whistleblowerheroes.org, www.whistleblowerheroes.org, if you want to hear some of these really wonderful people that I've had the opportunity to interview, and these are really good people, and I thought they're good people to be associated with. So you guys have a good evening, and thank you for coming, and I'll see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.